Here, I hope you can hear me.
Hi, good morning, Amy. It's Stephen Young here, and welcome. So, everyone, I just want to give
Great.
you a quick introduction about who Amy is and why we're so very fortunate to have her with us today. Amy's been she's the founder and director of the Real Estate Masters Guild. She's been in the coaching business since 1995. The Masters Guild was born from a desire to offer supportive, motivating, mentor-based learning environment for success-minded real estate professionals, and that is exactly who we have with us today. Amy, she's had articles published in several national publications, including Real Estate Business, Residential Specialist, Star Power News, and Real Estate Unplugged. She's also been featured in Blog Talk Radio and the Real Estate Coach Radio. So Amy started in real estate in 1992. She quickly went into coaching in 1995. She became a team manager for a top producing agent, and through that experience, she found Howard Britton's Star Power Network. So she believed so much in working with the best of the best that she did decide to join them back in 1996. After 12 years of an incredibly successful career with Star Power, she decided to branch out and do her own thing. And she's been doing that now since 2008, and she's recently joined up and teamed up with Linda McLean and McLean International. And so we're very happy today to present Amy from the Real Estate Masters Guild and McLean International to present to you on how to make your marketing make you more money. So without further introduction, please welcome Amy.
Stephen, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be with the group today, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun. So the bottom line about learning anything about personality styles is how can you put it to use in your day-to-day practice to improve your communications and ultimately to enhance your business. And so in order for us to get to the practical application, I think it's important that everybody understand the different personality types and how to discern them. So we're going to start. Stephen, can you tell me what your version of the golden rule is?
Well, my personal golden rule is to save 10% of everything I earn, but that could be completely different in real estate sales.
How about the old-fashioned golden rule?
I don't know. that is my golden rule.
We've probably all heard this phrase, do unto others as you would have done unto you, right?
Of course.
That's our golden rule. I want to stretch you guys to the platinum rule, which is to learn to treat others as they want to be treated and not how we want to be treated.
That makes sense.
Okay. So in order to do that, I always like to ask the question, do you believe that human behavior is predictable? Stephen, would you say human behavior is predictable?
I would think so. It's replicable. It's predictable. I would think so.
You know, interestingly enough, in a room full of people, we find that at least half the people in the room do not believe that's the case. So I'd like to take everyone to a little exercise real quick to let them know whether or not human behavior is predictable. So if you would, just on the corner of a sheet of paper, I want you to answer 4 questions for me really quick. Number 1, write down a color. First one that comes to mind. Number 2, write down a flower. Again, the first one that comes to mind. Then write down a piece of furniture. And then write down a number, 1 through 4. Now, I want you to look at your own answers and ask yourself, is human behavior predictable? If I had to venture a guess for all the people on the call who wrote down fuchsia or lavender, if I got 1 person, I'd be surprised. If I took a show of hands on how many wrote down red or blue, I would guess at least 80% of the people on the call would have written down red or blue. You're looking at your answer right now and maybe thinking, yes, I did.
I'm a red. I wrote down red.
How about for a flower? Did you write down lilac by any chance, Stephen?
No, I did rose just because I had to buy them yesterday, so that's why it's on top of mine.
Well, there you go. That's the one that people most often write down is rose. Now, when it comes to a piece of furniture, it's very rare that anyone write down an armoire or a lamp. Most people are going to write down couch, sofa, or chair. And so, again, it's just demonstrating is human behavior predictable.
Yep.
Now, I have a little fun thing I do with the 1 through 4. We call our number 1s our risk takers in the group. So if you wrote down 1, you can take that title for yourself. Our 4s are our extremists. Our 2s are our sex maniacs. And our 3s are looking for 2s. So you guys will have to all meet up later and find out what number you were. But that's
Absolutely.
A little bit of humor for the morning. So, the point is human behavior is, in fact, predictable to a very large degree. And knowing this, we can put this to use in our daily lives and our business practices to make us more productive and to make a much more positive outcome for the people we're interacting with. So I want to take you through a little bit of self-evaluation. So if everyone would just take that same scrap sheet of paper, I want you to draw a long vertical line like you see on the screen, direct versus indirect. And I want you to mark yourself on there. Are you more direct or are you more indirect? Direct people walk and talk faster. They're swift decision makers. They are assertive and impatient. They tend to tell versus ask. They like to take risks. They're driven by accomplishment and they focus on quantity. How much can I get done today? Whereas your indirect people, by generalities, tend to walk and talk slower. They tend to take more time when making decisions. They tend to be passive and patient. They listen well and they ask versus tell. They tend to be more reserved or perceived as shy. And they focus on quality versus quantity. So again, just mark yourself on that arrow where you fall, more direct or more indirect. Stephen, I'm going to take a wild guess and say you're direct.
Everybody on the call will agree that I am very direct, yes.
I would think so. Okay, so now we're going to go the other direction. Draw this arrow right over the top of the other one. So now you've got a graph, right? So on the horizontal axis, we're doing analytical versus emotional. Analytical people tend not to show or share their feelings. They tend to be observers versus conversers. They have limited body language. They stick to logic and facts. They're very task-oriented, and they don't like to have their time wasted. Whereas your emotional person shares their feelings readily. They tend to digress in conversation. They tend to get closer physically and have more animated body language. They show their feelings and emotions. They're very people-oriented versus task-oriented. And time is not as important. When they get to it, they get to it. So mark yourself on this arrow where you fall, analytical versus emotional. And then we're going to put the two together. So a little bit of high school graphing coming back to haunt you. I want you to chart yourself. So if you were on the top half of the first arrow in the direct category and on the left half of the second arrow on analytical, you'd be in the top left corner. Okay? So let's talk about these 4 quadrants then. These are the personality profiles. Starting with our direct and analyticals. These are our D personalities. And go ahead and write right on your notes. Put a D in there. This is the question you want to remember in reference to a D. They're focused on what in life? What's the bottom line? What's in it for me? What do you need? They're very focused. Remember, they're very task-oriented. Interestingly enough, only 5% of the population are D personalities. Now, because Ds are so extroverted and so to the point, our perception is likely that there are more D personalities than any other personality, and especially in sales, you'll encounter a lot of Ds along with one of the other personality types. However, they really only make up 5% of the population. Our I personalities then, let me back up to D for a second. You can write down a couple of D words to help you remember D. You can write down director, you can write down driver, and the perception is that they're dictators, if you want to write that word down. Not necessarily the case, it's perception though. So now we're going to go to direct and emotional in your top right corner, and these are our I personalities. Write down influencer next to the I. These are our who people. They want to know who else you've worked with. They want to know who lives in the neighborhood. They're their self-described lives of the party. They're our socializers. And they make up 25% of the population. Now, if I had to hazard a guess, Stephen, I would say that probably the vast majority of your agents, and in particular the ones that stand out in a group setting, are going to be your D and I personalities. And they may be a high D personality with some I tendencies, or they may be a high I personality with some D tendencies.
Yeah, most of our realtors are high I's with very strong D as well.
Now, that doesn't mean the other personality types don't make excellent real estate professionals. They do. They just have a different focus. So let's talk about the other two. Our emotional and indirect. These are our S personalities. For S, you can write down supporter. And their question is why. S's are slow to change. And so they're going to ask, why are we changing this? Why do we need to do this? They need to understand the why before they can support the how. Once they understand the why and they're on board with it, they'll be the most loyal, supportive advocate you could ever ask. They make up 35% of the population. And then in our final category, the analytical and indirect personality, these are our C personalities. These are our critical thinkers. And their question is how. You've heard the old adage, don't tell me how to make the watch, just tell me what time it is. That's something a D would say. C is the one who's going to want to tell you how the watch works. And they make up the remaining 35% of the population. Now, I think it's important we understand that we all possess all four of these personality styles, just to varying degrees. For a very high D personality, they may have very little S, but it's in there. And so we don't want to make the assumption that somebody is all one personality type and completely ignore the rest of their personality type. So let's just go a little bit deeper with each of these. I'm going to show you an image just to anchor these for you. There's your D. Here's your I personality. There's your S. And there's your C personality. And we're going to talk just a little bit more about what each of these means. But I find visuals are a great anchor to the message. So let's talk about those Ds. As I said before, they're bottom line focused. Some common phrases you might hear from a D are let's cut to the chase or just get it done. Again, they tend to be perceived as impatient and insensitive. That doesn't mean that they are. They're just focused on getting finished, getting things done, and being productive. Ds play to win, and feedback is like water off a duck's back. So in conversation with a D, you can be very direct. You can get straight to the point. What's important to remember is Ds play to win, and so if you are getting in an argument or in a quote-unquote peeing contest with a D, you're doing yourself and that person a disservice by not finding the win for that personality type. Another D word you might write down is daring, domineering, or demanding. These are things with our very high D personalities that you might hear referenced. Decisive would be another one. So let's talk about our I personalities, our self-described life of the parties. These are our influencers. Ds absolutely hate to hear these two phrases come out of an I personality. Ooh, here's an idea, or are we having fun yet? Our I's are emotional and energetic. They tend to have a lot of body language. They talk with their hands. And I's play for applause. They're looking for an audience. Feedback with your I's has to be casual and lighthearted because they want to have fun. And so, if, for example, let's say you have an administrative person who is a high I personality. You do want to focus on what needs to be fixed, but you want to have fun with it. So you can have a little bit of joking in that conversation when you're talking about improvements. Your I's can be described as impulsive, imaginative, interesting, and their favorite word is I. So we want to remember with those I personalities that they bring a lot of creativity. They're just going to need support in being focused. Now let's talk about our S personalities. These are our moms of the universe. They look after everybody else. So they are our supporters. They live to serve. Common phrases you might hear from an S would be, are you sure that's safe? Why do we keep changing it? And ultimately, and this is the key one, even if they don't agree with you, they're going to say whatever you think is best. Now, what that brings up is that an S can sometimes be passive-aggressive. So they won't tell you they disagree. They'll just hold that emotion. And if you've ever had an employee who just disappeared, or a prospective client who stopped returning your calls, they don't want the confrontation, so they will avoid. S's tend to be protective and supportive. They play to be with people because it's about the relationship with S's. And feedback can be damaging, so you need to be supportive when you deliver it. I put keep the family together there in that phrase because in terms of working with an S, I think one good thing to think about is if you're doing a relocation and the S is going to have to be separated from the family, that may help them get their property priced right to sell, to get on the road to be with the family, because they don't want to be separated for a long period of time. Some S words you can write down are security, safety, sociable, and stable. S's are incredibly loyal, and because they don't like change, tend to stay in a work environment in particular in a position much longer than the other personality types would endure because of their loyalty. All right, so then finally we have our C personalities, our critical thinkers. These are our detail-oriented perfectionists. So you think of engineers, you think of doctors, you think of librarians. All these people have very great organizational skills. Common phrases you might hear from a C, proper preparation prevents poor performance. Or this one, which is key, I need more information before I can make a decision. Your C clients are the ones that are going to want to see the market statistics. They're going to want to know what the R factor in the insulation is. They want the details. They're analytical and they're critical, and they don't play, they plan. So when you give feedback to a C, you need to make sure it's matter-of-fact and thorough, or it's not valid. We don't want to say things like approximately or about with the C. They need the exact data. Now, Stephen, have you ever encountered a C in your business history?
Many times. The challenge with me is I'm a high D, so for me to work with a C is very, very frustrating.
Yes. Requires a lot of patience and a lot of extra time.
Yes.
So let's write down these words for a C. Correct, choreograph, contained, and calculating. All right, so what do we do with this information with these personality types? Let's talk a little bit about that. Your D personalities, remember, for a D, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. I happen to be married to a flaming D. We had friends over yesterday for Mother's Day, and we were playing a friendly game of spoons with cards. My husband was leaping across that table to grab that spoon. He was not about to lose that game. He is D in everything.
That sounds about right for me as well.
So things we want to do with the D, stress the team concept. And even if you're a solo agent, you're working on a team there as part of Young Realty. So stress the support that you have through that organization when talking to a D prospect. Let them know that you know their time is valuable and you're not about to waste it. Help them move from A to B as quickly as possible. And stress results. These want to know what your results are when they make a decision to work with you. Our I personalities, never waste a crowd is the I motto. What's most important to the I is themselves. So stress testimonials. They want to know who else you've worked with and what those people have to say. Talk about who you know. If you've worked with a local government official or a sports celebrity, that's very interesting to an I, and they connect with that. Be fun and enthusiastic with an I. They don't want to be drowned in data. Talk of friends, parties, and sports with an I. They like to share the good news of their life. And then spend time developing that relationship. They want to feel connected. Now with your S personalities, remember they don't like change, so we're going to give them a motto of don't rock the boat. What's most important to an S is harmony, and that's in relationships. So with an S, spend time listening and developing that relationship. Even for you as a D, this is probably also a difficult one because you want to get right to the transaction. Those S's want to take some time really getting to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all difficult except another D for me. I just like getting things done, right?
And Ds tend to think if everyone could just adapt to be like them, the world would be a much better place, right?
That's right.
So give your S's plenty of time to make a decision. They don't like to feel rushed. And remember, as I said earlier, they'll just vanish. They'll quit returning phone calls and move on. They're not about to have a confrontation with you. Let them know you care about them. Now your C personalities, hugely important. A C would rather not make a decision than make an uneducated one. If they don't have all the data they need to make a decision, they won't move forward. So most important for your C is the details. Use comparative data with the C. Know your market statistics. Know your recent solds. Paired with that information. Appeal to logic, because that's what a C operates on. Be prepared. Bring everything you think they could possibly need in order to move forward. Now, let's talk about some different ways. This is where we get to the practical application side. By now, I hope you all have a pretty good idea. This is who I am. Maybe you're even thinking, I am mostly this, but secondarily, I'm a little bit of this. I happen to be an IC personality, 50-50 split, so I'm in constant conflict with myself. The greatest challenges in communication tend to be across that graph. So your Ds and S's tend to have a lot of trouble communicating, and your I's and C's tend to have a lot of trouble communicating because they're exact opposites and in both spectrums. So let's talk about some different ways to identify our DISCs. From the handshake, you can even start to tell what personality type you have. Your D personalities tend to have a very firm handshake. They go right in for it, and even if you've had one of those knuckle cruncher handshakes, that tends to be a D personality. They know it's about the grip, and so they're going to make a statement straight from the get-go. Your S personalities, they will tend to touch you when they shake your hand. They'll either tap you on the side of the arm, or they might clasp your hand on both sides when they shake it. That's a reassurance gesture. Your C personalities might be what we describe as a limp fish handshake. It's a formality, but it's not something that they enjoy. So they're going to shake your hand because it's required, but don't expect a lot of emotion in there. They're going to get in and get out as quickly as they can. And then your I personalities, they tend to hug. They skip right over the handshake. And geez, don't you love this when an I comes screaming at you, hands shaking in the air and want to give you an embrace. So even at the point of handshake, you can start to tell what personality type you're dealing with. How about what they wear? If you consider what somebody has on, that starts to be a statement about their personality type. Which personality type do you think dresses for comfort? It's your S personality.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Earth tones, turtlenecks, comfortable shoes. That's the focus for the S. And again, we're taking these to extremes, right, so that we can make a differentiation between the four personality types. Your C's tend to be immaculately put together and everything matches. The belt, the shoes, the handbag, everything is impeccable. And they tend to dress more conservatively. Your D's you're going to find in a power suit. They're going to stick to blacks and navies. They might have a bold tie on to stand out. And your I's are going to be completely blinged out. They're going to have lots of color. The ladies may have quite a bit of jewelry on. They're not afraid to sport a very fashionable outfit. Now, what do you think about vehicles, Stephen? What might you see for the personality type?
For vehicles?
The car they drive.
For the car, yeah. Well, I think D would obviously be something higher end, I would assume, just from my own, just from my, just
Who do
from
you
my.
think drives this vehicle?
I would definitely have to say a C or an S.
Personality. The minivans, the Suburbans, those are your S personalities. Your C's are going to drive things that are fuel efficient, that have great safety ratings, good results in consumer reports. And yes, your I personalities, something sporty or flashy and colorful.
Right.
Even in posture, we can start to tell personality types. And so when you have a D seated in front of you, that D is probably sitting to the front of the seat. They're probably sitting very erect. Your S personality, if they were standing in front of you, is probably cradling themselves. You might see them holding both elbows, and they tend to not stand as tall as a D. Your I personalities can't sit still. They're all over the place. They're constantly moving. Even when they're not talking, they can't seem to stand still. And your C's are very proper, and so they're going to have good posture. Now, we don't get the benefit of seeing everyone, right? Oftentimes, we're getting leads by the internet, or it's a referral, and we're talking to them on the phone, or they're calling in on a yard sign. So it's important to start looking at ways we can identify the personality types, even if we're not seeing that person. So on the phone, I want to teach you 2 ways to start breaking down personality types, even on the phone. One is the speed at which someone's talking. So which personality type, Stephen, do you think talk faster?
D, for sure.
Definitely D's and one other personality type.
I?
Yep, your D's and I's talk faster. Your S's and C's tend to talk slower. Okay? Now, what about inflection? That's the other way to break it down. So if we can break it down to 1 of 2 types, so we've got the D's and I's talking faster, the S's and C's talking slower. Let's look at inflection or emotion in the voice. Which of the 2 personality types would you guess have more inflection?
I and S?
S.
Absolutely correct. Your I and S personalities tend to show more emotion through their voice, so they're going to have more inflection, whereas your D's and your C's tend to be more monotone. So now, even on a phone call, we can start to discern what personality type we're talking to. If we get someone who's talking more slowly and with very little inflection or emotion, that's our C personality. If we have someone who's very energetic in their voice, talking fast, has a lot of emotion and energy, that's going to be our I personality. Even in written communication, we can start telling personality type. And because we do so much by email, this one has become critical. Because what happens is, when we type emails, we tend to type in our own personality type, right? We are who we are. And we don't take the time to think through, well, I'm this type of personality, but the person receiving this message isn't like me. So what if I adjust my communication to accommodate the person at the other end instead of staying who I am? This is especially important for D's, Stephen, because you tend to write very brief, to the point emails. The fewer words, the better. Get the communication done, move on to the next one.
Absolutely.
And if you have, in particular, an S personality on the other end of that email, they want you to take the time to ask about how they're doing. They want you to take a little more time to explain things and reassure them. And so as we look at written communication, who do you think write the longest emails of the personality type?
Possibly C, I would assume. Analytical?
Yep, your C's, and sometimes your S's. But definitely your C's are going to write the longest emails, whereas your D's write the shortest.
Yeah, some of my D clients, we have communication through this subject line in the email. We don't even have bodies in the email.
Yep, absolutely. Why waste your time writing it down in the body when you can get everything you need to say in 7 words on the subject line?
Exactly. Which is
So
why I
we're
love
starting to
text
look at that
messaging.
written communication and say, okay, I'm getting an idea of what personality type I'm dealing with here. This translates all the way to the level of texting, by the way, which we'll get to here in a minute. In your written communication with an S, you always want to lead off by asking about them first. With C's, you want to make sure everything you provide is accurate, and if there is a link you can provide them to additional information on something you're referencing, that's always appreciated. Your D's want you to get to the point. And so don't spend 2 paragraphs telling them what you can tell them in a sentence. So let's talk about text for a minute. Who do you think has the most accurate grammar in a text?
Have to be C.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter if it takes them more than 140 characters to communicate what they need to say. They don't have a problem running over into 2 or 3 texts. And the thought of abbreviating words to a single letter, there's no way a C is going to do that.
No, definitely not.
Now your S personalities, here's an interesting thing to note in written communications from an S. Remember I told you they can be passive aggressive? So they tend to, they want to say what's on their mind, but they don't want to offend. So they might make a slightly confrontational statement and follow it with a smiley face to try to take the sting out of it. Then you're left to wonder, were they being serious or were they joking? Your eyes, on the other hand, are going to emoticon the heck out of everything. They know the smileys, they know the frownies, they know 16 other kinds of emoticons on abbreviations, and they use every abbreviation that's ever been invented. In fact, sometimes you have to go back and ask an I, what does that string of characters mean? I haven't seen that one before. So even with your text, you can start to know a little bit more about someone's personality type. Now, let's talk a minute, if we may, about showings. How can you tell a person's personality type just by the way the house appears? And why would it be important to know someone's personality type, the seller, when you're representing the buyer? Well, how we present the offer is going to have an influence on our success, especially if we end up in a multiple offer situation. And so if you walk into a house and you find that everything is absolutely meticulous, you're probably dealing with a C personality. D's keep a pretty clean house for showings, but they will shove the things off the counter into a drawer to get them out of the way, whereas the C will take the time to put everything away where it belongs. A great way to uncover a C is to look in the pantry. Is everything very well organized? You know, your extreme C's will even have their spices sorted a certain way. All the cans in the pantry will be turned with the labels facing forward. Now, some giveaways for I's and S's are how many pictures do they have in their environment. And there's a difference between the pictures you'll see in an I environment and an S environment. Your I personalities are going to be in every picture. It's a picture of them with the president and them with the coach and them with whomever, whereas your S's are taking pictures of everybody else. They're not worried about themselves. Kids, grandkids, dogs, everybody. Your D's are also going to be the ones that display the most awards because they worked hard and accomplished. You need to know about that. So that's another way for you to start discerning personality types. Now let's really get into the, well, let's take a fun little quiz here, Stephen. We're going to put you to the test.
Okay, but before we get to that, Amy, just on a quick point, you mentioned when you're working with buyers and sellers for offers. This is great tools and information, even when you're going for a listing presentation, when you're trying to sign a buyer up to a buyer's representation agreement, when you're working with a tenant, you know, like there's so many different like intricacies where you can use this. And sales doesn't matter what you're selling. It's all about building that relationship. The quicker you can get to knowing who that relationship is you're dealing with, the quicker you'll get to the sale or the purchase or the showings or whatever is the process you're trying to get to them. So if you're trying to get that listing presentation, you walk into a D's house and you're trying to sell them with an S technique, you won't get the listing. It doesn't matter what you tell them. It's just the way it is.
Excellent point. You know, I call them social cues. I think people are constantly trying to tell us, this is who I am, and please communicate with me in a way that makes sense to me. And so everything that people do and everything that people show you is a social cue to help you figure this out. And I really hope when everyone walks away from the call today, we're going to talk about some practical things like how to change up your pre-listing presentation to adapt to the personality types. I hope you take all of this to another level. You know, if you're in the grocery store and you're waiting in line, start thinking about that cashier. What is he or she doing that indicates personality type? Really start putting it to practical application right away. How can you have a better interaction with the person in front of you based on what you're seeing happen? Same thing with, you know, your buyers and sellers, sure, but when you get the daily practical application with your family, with service providers, amazing things can start happening for you because you're tuning in to how others want to be treated. And that is what this is all about. Real estate is a relationship business, right?
Absolutely.
So you hit the nail on the head. If you're walking into a listing presentation and you've come prepared with all the facts, data, and logic about market statistics, and this person's got leopard print furniture and pictures all over the place of celebrities, and you don't take the time to ask them about those things and let them brag about their experiences, you're missing a golden opportunity to really connect with that person and win their trust.
Yeah, no question about it.
All right, so let's give you a little quiz here.
Okay. I'm ready.
Here we go. What personality type?
I.
Good job. How about these?
That's an S.
Yep.
The D.
Yep.
And a C.
I throw that one in for fun.
Fair enough.
How about these folks?
It's a challenging one. S, potentially.
Yep. S, personality, serving others.
This is an I, right?
Yep.
D.
Yep. You've never done that, have you, Stephen?
Never.
How about this office environment?
Very meticulous. So it'd be a C or potentially a D.
Exactly. If you want to, it is a C personality, but if you want to confirm it, open a couple of drawers and see how organized the drawers are.
Correct.
All right. This car?
C. Oh, S.
That was S.
That's the I.
Indeed.
Oh, that would be the C.
Definitely. We got our healthy hybrid. Good for the environment and great gas mileage.
That's right.
And you would not mind driving this, would you?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the pre-listing presentation because this is a huge one. The business is all about listings after all. So let's look at that actual presentation book and ask ourselves, okay, what does a D want? Remember, they want results and they want to get to the bottom line. So we want to make sure that for our D personalities, we include a table of contents. And this allows them to jump through.
I'm not sure.
Not have
the background noise here, Amy, but go on.
Are we okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the table of contents allows your Ds to get straight to what they're interested in and not have to mess with the rest of the book. The other thing you want to do for a D is have bullet items. So if you have a lot of information to disseminate, hit the bullets first, and then you can go into a lengthier explanation for your C personality. Your Is are looking for graphics, they're looking for color, and they're looking for testimonials. Now, S's look for testimonials too, but for a different reason. Your Is, remember, are looking for who. So they are looking at who the people are that you've worked with, and they're asking themselves, do I know that person? I think I know that person. They want to connect with the people that you know. I always tell a story on Howard Brinton when I worked for him. He would look at the workbook for the annual conference, and he would say, boy, just the sheer volume of pages, there must be so much valuable information in there. Didn't matter to him what was in there, but when he looked at it, he was impressed with the size. Now, your S's are looking for testimonials, but they're looking for a different reason. They want to read the experience that other people have had with you so that they can relate, and they can develop a level of reassurance on what you offer. The other thing that you can give S's, and Stephen, I don't know if you guys do this with your office, but the two guarantees that I'll mention, I've put the word guarantee in here because S's don't like risk. One would be an easy exit listing guarantee, which says if you're not happy with how I'm servicing your property, you can fire me at any time. And so that takes the risk out for an S of being stuck in a lengthy relationship if they're very uncomfortable and things aren't going well. And
we don't do anything company-wide, but this is something that I used to implement personally when I was selling real estate. But we can definitely issue something company-wide. Yeah,
and if you want, I have a written one that I'll email you. I'm happy to share with you.
Sure, that'd be great.
And then you can offer the same thing for a buyer if you're having your buyers sign a buyer representation agreement. And I don't know if you guys do that in your area, but you could easily offer the exact same thing on the buyer side to say, look, if you're not happy with the representation you're being given, then you don't have to stay in this relationship.
Understood.
And so that gives us as a reassurance. Now, in some markets, there are also agents doing a couple of different guaranteed sale programs, and I don't know that you guys even consider this in your area, so I'm not going to spend any time on them, but that would be another example of a way to create something for an S personality that gives them reassurance. And then your C personalities, as you look through that pre-listing presentation, do I have the data to support what I'm saying? Do I have charts representing that data to make it easily disseminated? And this one is huge. Have someone else proof your pre-listing presentation, please, please, please. Your C's are looking for accuracy. And if you're not a grammar god or goddess, have somebody else proof your work for you. The high C personalities are the ones that will actually take your marketing pieces, circle the errors, and mail it back to you so you can see how you screwed up. If you want to earn trust with the C and get that business, and remember, they're 35% of the population, so that's a pretty significant chunk. You need to be willing to present yourself as the utmost professional, and that includes, do you have proper grammar? So those are some things you can do with your pre-listing presentation, and I would encourage each of you as an action item coming out of this call to take on in the next week to sit down with your pre-listing presentation and say, do I appeal to all four of the personality types with what I'm putting in front of the seller? Oftentimes with a couple we get two different personality types, right? So it's not enough just to appeal to the one person. We've got to be able to satisfy both. And your pre-listing presentation is a great way to do that.
Yeah, just
So
Amy,
let's talk about
on a
websites.
point, not to cut you off there, but it's on a point on that, is most realtors I've met don't even have the listing presentation done or pre-listing presentation done to have like a booklet or something set in stone that's very adaptable as you go along depending on the personality. So step one should be create your own listing presentation. Make it your own. But it's important to use these as a guideline. So if you don't have one, just start with a table of contents and say, what do you want in this? What do you want your clients to know about you, about your business, about the market? And then from there, just continue down the list to create sort of your starting point. At that point, then you can adapt that pre-listing presentation if you don't have one. If you do already have one and you don't have all these points in there, you really have to start testing it. You know, the results are obviously a great test. So if you're not getting listings, there may be an issue with your presentation, whether it's your delivery or the content. That's something you have to really focus on.
I love to hear this statement from a coaching client. I rocked that listing presentation. I have no idea why they didn't list with me.
Right.
Okay, well, let's pick it apart.
Yep.
Let's go back and evaluate who was this person. And pretty quickly you can start to see, oh gosh, didn't think about. They were a high D and I was taking the time to go through this whole marketing plan.
That's right.
They just wanted me to get to the bottom line, right? How much is my house going to sell for and how long is it going to take and what are you going to charge me? So it's once you understand this and you start really evaluating your interactions, you're going to start having some aha moments about what didn't work in the past and how you can fix it for the future. So then let's talk about website real quick. These, when they visit a website, are looking for the shortcuts immediately. Do you make it easy for them if they're a seller or buyer to get straight to where they want to be? There's an agent by the name of Sam Miller who's out of Ohio, and he literally has 2 buttons on his site that say, I want to list and I want to buy. So those Ds, when they visit his website, they can get right down to it. They don't have to waste their time wading through information about his team or any of that kind of stuff. They can go straight to what they want. Your I personalities love video. I don't know if any of your agents yet, Stephen, are doing video blogs or posting any video content on their websites. But in addition to it being great SEO, because Google owns YouTube, it's also a great way to attract your I personalities. Also, any interviews with local celebrities and business owners gives great content for video, but it also is a great way for you to show an I that you're connected with the community. Now your S's, in addition to looking for your testimonials, you know, same thing from your pre-list book applies online. They want the testimonials. They're hoping to find links to school information and crime statistics. Remember, it's about safety and security with S's. So if you're able to access that information and provide a link to it, a resource to it on your website, that's fantastic. Now your C's are after comprehensive data and full access. If they have to go through 5 or 6 permissions before they can get to searching for property information, they're not going to be very happy about that. Or if they only get a limited amount of information and then have to wait for you to contact them, that's also going to be frustrating. So make sure that you have pretty comprehensive data for your C's as well as full access. Now, this is a quick summary card that I want to, I will send to you, Stephen, that you can give to everyone. I suggest you keep it by the phone so that when you're communicating with people, you've got a quick reference point. Remember, your D's are your directors. Their question is what? They want to make money, save time, and be more efficient. So you need to be short and to the point, asking closed questions. Those are yes-no questions. Your D's are seeking productivity and bottom line, and they fear being taken advantage of. Your I's are your socializers, your influencers. They ask who. They want to have fun and talk about themselves, so you need to add humor and don't labor on the details. They're seeking recognition and fun, and they fear a loss of prestige. Your S's are your supporters. Again, their question is why. They want security, safety, and a sense of belonging. So you need to ask for their opinion and their feelings. And use open-ended questions that give them an opportunity to talk. They seek acceptance and they fear sudden change. So keep those things in mind. Even asking for a price reduction with an S, you need to give them reassurance that it's the right thing to do, and you need to give them time to consider the decision. And your C personalities, your thinkers, your criticals, they ask how. They want the details. They want practicality, logic, fairness, and a systematic approach. You need to be prepared to give C's facts, documentation, data, and printouts. And they're seeking accuracy, and they fear criticism of their work. So, Stephen, I'd love to open it up for questions at this point. I hope that's given a good overview and some specific things that you can focus on.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, Amy. One point to make a very, very important point is you need to really learn this inside and out. It's one thing to sort of sit here for an hour and say, yeah, I get it, D.I.S.C, whatever, and it's a good acronym, but it's really important that the quicker and better you can get to your clients' understanding of who they are and what they're looking for from you, the quicker your business will begin to take off. And for me being a high D, when I was first introduced to D.I.S.C, I was like, yeah, just get to the point, emotional stuff, sure, just move on, right? But I found the more I spent learning it and really sort of implementing it into my business is when I really started to see my business take off. Not just like by a little bit. I was literally doubling the amount of sales I was doing year after year because I was understanding what I needed to deliver to the person I was speaking to. And, you know, part of my referral business was I was attracting a lot of Ds. People really wanted to work with me who were D like-minded. And the challenge I found was a lot of them were referring people to me who weren't Ds. They were Is and S's and C's. So I always had to adapt. But the quicker I could adapt and the understanding of who to speak to and why to speak to them and what to present to them, the better I got at that, the better my business results were. So it's very important that you learn this. So you know, it's one thing just to sit here for an hour, but it's another thing to really internalize it, really use it day in, day out. You'll get to a point where it becomes second nature, where you don't have to think, you know, are they a D? Should I talk to them about being taken advantage of because it's a fear, or just to get to a point? You don't have to think like that anymore. You just know what you're going to say to that specific person. And if it's a listing presentation, you should already have canned 4 different listing presentations. Now, for the most part, like you said, everybody has parts of this, but there is one dominating letter in their emotional. So that is what your listing presentation needs to be geared towards. So it's one, if you don't have a listing presentation, step 1, get one, okay? Step 2 is you should have 4 different types or different ways to say your listing presentation to the person who you're speaking with. The challenge is always when there's 2 different personalities in the room that you're speaking to at the same time, like a couple. That I've always found challenging, but I think most people would find that challenging.
Well, and here's the thing. If your print material supports all 4 personality types, then you have a tool that gives you the flexibility to be able to accommodate multiple personality types in a listing presentation.
Agreed.
So if you have, you know, when we sold our last house and bought our new one, our realtor was a real master of the D.I.S.C. She knew I was an IC personality. She knew my husband is what we'll call a flaming D personality. And so when she came in, she got right to the point, gave him what he needed, and then she said, Amy and I are going to sit and go over the details. You're welcome to stay with us, but I know you probably have other things you want to get to. You know what? That was like the heavens opened up and a sunbeam shone right on my husband's forehead. He was so happy. He had the info he needed, and he was off, and then I could go over all of the details.
Absolutely.
And so you really can get masterful at using this. And I wasn't joking about the grocery store. You know, you really want to get better at this. Start watching the people who are around you. You know, what are you going to see in a cashier that's going to tell you personality type? Which personality type picks up every object, looks for the barcode, and then holds it over the scanner? That's your C personality, right?
That's right.
Whereas your D is just grabbing stuff and scanning it as fast as they can go And if the machine doesn't beep, then they just swing it around and run it through a second time. Social cues are everywhere.
Yeah, we've given all our realtors a set sort of listing presentation. What they have to adapt, though, within that presentation is we have sort of the analytics, we've got the graphs, we've got the table of contents, all that stuff. But what they need to understand is the delivery of it is a lot different than just having it. So that's why it's very important to understand D.I.S.C and how it all integrates into their business.
Oh, and when you master it, it's a beautiful thing.
Well, it makes your business a lot easier, right? So what I'm going to do now, Amy, I'm going to take everybody off mute, okay? And if you have questions, you can either type them in or just speak, and then we'll get your questions answered. The floor is open.
Their heads are spinning, Stephen.
Everyone's so shy.
Good morning.
Morning, Carrie Lee. How are you?
Pardon me, Carrie Lee?
I was just saying it's an excellent presentation, and it just supports how we as realtors have to be very much chameleons and, you know, as you say, know who we're dealing with, and this is a great tool for us.
Thank you.
100%. One of the other things that's important to know is to know who you are, right? You have to understand, are you a D, are you an I, are you an S, or are you a C?
For me,
You know, that's been strong for my husband and I having a better relationship, knowing our personality types. Well, I'm not hearing a lot of questions.
I don't hear anything. So either we were so good on the delivery that they get it all, or they're just
exactly.
So what we'll do is...
I feel like you...
Sorry, go on, Sarvish.
I feel like you've covered everything. I don't know what to really ask. I just want to go out there and practice now.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And again, I'm always a big preacher of practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So if you're going to be practicing this, make sure you understand it before you start practicing it, because you don't want to confuse a D with an I. That's just disaster. So it's very important that you internalize this first, and then make that perfect practice so that you can perfect the whole art of the D.I.S.C and internalize it. Just make it your own.
Are you going to be sending us a recording of this so we can go over it again?
Yeah, so everybody's going to get a recording of this this afternoon, so you can keep with it, you can reference it. We'll put it on our website as well, so you can have access to it, okay?
Perfect, thanks.
All right, so if there's no more questions, I don't want to keep Amy. Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate your time today. And going forward, Amy and Linda, we're all going to be working together, and this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for everybody involved.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yep. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, everyone, for being on the call this morning. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen, for putting this together, too. Thanks.
Thank you. Our pleasure.